long as the grass shall grow, let us know peace. Amen. All right.
Chair, if we could just take a short break. I think we're having trouble getting the video up.
Oh.
It's not required by law, so we can certainly move forward, but people tend to let us know if it's not on. And oh, there it goes.
Are we up now?
There we go. The light, is that on?
I got the red light on.
Wow, that took a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Still in black and white, but we're good.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Does that mean that our expressions of appreciation for Dave Hershey were not recorded?
They were not recorded, if you'd like to repeat that.
All right. Well, I would, because I think that Dave Hershey was a real fundamental member of this commission for many, many years. So I would like it noted for not only the minute record, but also for our viewing audience, the Planning Commission's appreciation for Dave Hershey. I feel like we as a planning commission and as a city have really benefited from his wisdom and his expertise and his leadership. So we'd like to thank him for his service, and he'll be missed. But we'd also like to welcome our new planning commissioner, Kai Hinsey.
Thank you.
So, sitting in this role, I've always said that I have big shoes to fill. Dave Hershey was our chair for many years, so I hope I can live up to his leadership that he provided to us. So welcome. Let's go ahead and start with our first agenda item, where we are being asked to consider the proposed conceptual subdivision plat for Dual Creek Place, which is proposed for 3 single-family lots at 641 East, 200 South. This has been scheduled for a public hearing, and we'll turn the time over to staff.
Okay, thank you, Chair and Commission. A few months ago, this property belonged to the county, and back in November of 2017, this was rezoned from a public facility zone to a residential low zone. This is about just under an acre of property, and now they have come to us with a conceptual subdivision plan for 3 lots on this property. If you can recall from the rezone, I was trying to bring up the zoning map, hold on. The area above this is a retention basin, and they're leaving that open, and then this area to the east as well as a public easement. So the property to the north will not be developed at this time, only these 3 lots on the southern end of the property. For a conceptual subdivision, there's not a lot of concern. Obviously, more will be needed in the following steps, but this is just a conceptual plat that lays out the building pads and the plat itself. The biggest concern from staff's perspective is that, well, it's not in the hillside overlay zone. Technically, there are pretty steep slopes on this property, and there's also potentially a lot of fill on the property. And so our city engineer is requiring a geotechnical and soils report to be submitted at the preliminary step. Also, you know, the utilities and drainage have to be reviewed at that step as well. So that's our biggest concern in going forward with this. But it meets all of our development standards for a building lot at this time. For the 3, each lot is about 1/3 of an acre, so 0.3 something for each one of them. And they have more than enough frontage and area for a good-sized house on those lots there. So at this stage in the at the process, there's not a lot of concerns at the staff level. So, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Kelsey. Any questions for staff? All right. We'll invite the applicant to come forward and address the matter if you'd like to do so.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time here this evening. Thanks for this moment.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Certainly will. I'm Tony Thompson, and I'm the property manager for Davis County, and it's a pleasure to meet and discuss this property. Met a week and a half ago with your staff in the community development review. I guess that's the official name or something close to that for your meeting, and we went over this, and they gave a few recommendations, and I believe those are in your staff report, and Cassie went over those and reviewed those, and we have no problem with doing that. I think it'll give a better end product, to do that geotechnical report. No surprises for the lot owner when they go to build their home. They'll know what's there. The property to the north is actually in Centerville City's name, or it's not really a retention pond or a detention pond. It's just kind of free flowing through there. So the city has that. Also along the east side, the county made a connection through there. I think the engineer, Kevin, oh, help me with his last name, Campbell, had a question on whether or not there was an easement to be reserved over that lot 3 or the lot on the east side, but the county actually reduced the frontage on this proposed subdivision and deeded an additional 8 feet to the city next to the right-of-way that goes up in there to the pump house. There was a water line in there, and we figured it would be better to have the city own that property than try to have maintenance of that water line in a side yard easement on the property owner. So that will be the connection between the 200 South and 100 South and into that little community park. I believe that's what the city is wanting to develop it as, and have a little gathering spot for the neighbors. And all that complements the subdivision that's proposed, and appreciate the opportunity to speak to it. So,
Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Thompson? Looks like not. Thank you so much.
thank you.
This matter has been scheduled for a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and take this opportunity to invite any member of the public that wishes to speak to this matter to come forward. Go ahead and take the mic and please state your name for us.
I'm Marilee Brio. I'm a homeowner on 100 South. And I'm kind of new to hearing about this. I just have a few questions, if they could be answered. One is, who is the developer? Who will be the developer of this land?
Go ahead and you can ask your questions, and then once the public hearing has been closed, then we can address those questions to
Okay,
staff.
so just ask them and you won't answer them now.
Yep.
Okay. So I'd like to know who the developer is. This gentleman mentioned that the land on 100 South or north of this subdivision will remain the same. Is that temporary, or is that a long-term thing to not build on that property that's currently there where the retention pond and the creek comes down? And what quality of homes are going in there? And you mentioned they were single family, so we know that they're not any kind of multi-family townhomes or anything like that. I think that's the rest of my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak? Seeing no one else come forward, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll invite the applicant to step back up and respond to the questions that have been posed.
Thank you. Those were wonderful questions, and I'd be glad to address them, and the commission may also have some comments on them as we go into it. The developer, at this point, the county is looking at, moving ahead and developing the property through a process that's known at least through paper plat. This is the first step on a 3-step process, so this is the stepping stone to get there. But the county would probably be taking this through as far as we can, because that provides more value back to the county for developing the property. So the developer at this time is intended to be the county, so that's what we've got there. The north half plan, that's the city's property, so I'll let them address that as to what's going to happen there. And the quality of home, hopefully the homes that come in there will enhance the neighborhood. The size of the lots will allow a nice single-family home to be built on it. There's some terrain to the property, so they could have some real nice features of the home. It's not going to be the county won't be building the homes. We'll sell the lots, and we'll allow a developer to come in there, or a builder to come in and build the homes. But all that is driven through the I would assume you have some type of standards in your zoning that requires a home to be certain size, certain type of material, certain certain appearance, and the international building code, the residential building code will drive a lot of the size of that. But the lots will be a nice size lot to where, you know, I don't want to put a dollar figure on them, but they'll be probably well above affordable homes.
Can you answer the question of, do you intend to sell the lots together or each parcel separately?
If we go through the county, if the county goes through and gets the 3 lots approved and record the plat, they will sell as individual lots. If anybody wants to combine any of those lots, they would have to buy the lots and then come back before your body here and go through the process of combining those in there. But
I didn't mean combining the lots. I meant, are you seeking a developer to develop all 3, or would you be seeking to sell the lots individually to have people develop, or not a developer, a builder, excuse me, a builder to do all 3, or individually?
well, I think our ordinance, when we get to the property sales, the county ordinance is kind of the highest price.
Okay.
So if someone comes in and you know, they offer the highest price to buy all 3 of them over what we have as a bid or an offer on the 3 individual lots, I mean, they're going to be looking at general fund revenue on this, so that's the bottom line. So
Great, thank you.
Thanks so much.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Cassie, can you address the second question that Ms. Brio asked with regards to what the plans are for the land that's just north of the subdivision? Do we have any info on that?
Not a lot from my end. In my discussions with everyone else at the staff level, we have really no intentions of developing it now or in the future. I don't know if 20 years from now that may be the case, but there's been no discussion of it at the staff level that I'm aware of.
Okay.
For the record, can you remind the public what occurred with, is it appropriate to remind the public what occurred with the swap of the land so that we know that how we received some land from them and they were developing it? And what do you think, Lisa?
Well, the city did enter into an agreement with the county. It's not that relevant to the subdivision of the property now, which is just an administrative decision, but we did enter into an agreement where the county deeded us nearly an acre of property just in exchange for the waiver of certain development fees. But those waivers only go for, as he mentioned, the paper platting, and at that point, certain impact fees will be due. So at that time, so anything due at subdivision level is not waived.
Well, I mean that previously this land did not own, Centerville City did not own a section of this
Any
land.
of it.
And now we do, and so it is now, instead of having it all up to the county, it's now in Centerville City's hands.
The north piece.
Yes.
That's correct, yes.
So
We're
that's,
very glad
so
to
that's
have that.
what I was trying to explain, that side used to not even belong to us as a city. And with this transfer sale or swap or whatever reduction of fees, we're now able to have that whole side, that's that north side, and then that 8 foot plus the other side on the east that allows still accessibility through that way, walking through, people walk through unofficially, I guess, through that way. So that's still maintained that way. And like Cassie said, we have no current plans for developing that.
Also, real quick, just to remind everyone, in previous discussion, we talked about that north side of the property, and there is some significant engineering that would be required to really
To
develop
even
much
do
in
it,
there because
yep.
of the way that the creek runs through, so that,
And it is subject to a significant easement in
Yes.
favor of the county for that.
For the
flood-
creek.
For the creek and
Yeah.
flood control.
So the likelihood in short terms is pretty low.
Yeah, and he reminded us it wasn't rezoned either, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Any further discussion or debate?
Can I just get clarification? You said it was not rezoned or it was rezoned?
The northern property was not.
Was not rezoned.
not rezoned.
The chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for the planning commission to accept the conceptual plan for the Joel Creek Place subdivision at 641 East, 200 South with directives 1 and 2 and suggested reasons for the actions A through D as stated in staff's report.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, debate? Let's go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item, we're going to be discussing the results of the Main Street Table of Use Survey and a proposed timeline with alternative goals that staff has put together. So we'll turn the time over to staff.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a preference if we talk about the survey results or the timeline first?
Whatever makes sense to you.
Okay.
I will defer to you on this, Cassie.
Okay. Let's talk about the survey results. So this was every use that is in our use list, and you guys voted on its current status on the Main Street zone, which is commercial medium. Thanks for filling it out. And I color coordinated it so the darkest green is the most amount of votes, and the highlighted ones are the ones with the most discrepancy between what use it is and what people voted on it for. So as you can see in the permitted use list, most of the votes were stay permitted, which is great because they are all permitted uses. In the conditional use list, these are all things that require a conditional use permit in the CM zone. Things like a bank and a cultural service, most of you wanted, the majority wanted it to be permitted, but things like family child care facility, pretty much everyone wanted it to stay as it is in the CUP. So does everyone understand the coloring and the, okay, got it. So I think the ones in yellow are the most interesting that could potentially go forward with some kind of amendment. Some of them are more extreme, more popular than others in terms of the number of votes. I just colored the ones that just had a simple majority to them. So things like a park, it's pretty like even split, but like a bank, I never would have guessed that most people would have wanted that all permitted. So, so yeah, we can go forward with this and discuss that in our timeline, but I thought it gave us a good start into amending the table of uses to see where at least there's the biggest difference in what we think the table of use should be and what it actually is. And then Corey came up with a few alternatives. And in just response to the work session that we had a few weeks, months ago now, still pretty up in the air as to which direction that we're headed. So I think another work session would be helpful. I don't know what else we should do before that work session, but Corey has laid out a few scenarios and timelines. Obviously, on one side, we have leave the Main Street overlay plan exactly as it is. So much time and work has been brought into that plan coming to be that I think, well, how many years has it been now? Over 10? Yeah. So, you know, it's not getting us exactly the results that you wanted, so I think there is some argument to amending at least parts of it, and they would all have pros and cons to them, as Corey outlined here. Obviously, the less we do, the shorter the timeline. If you want to completely overhaul it, it's going to take longer. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts and response to the proposed timelines and what you see going forward for another work session or even longer than that.
Well, first, let me thank you for putting together the survey. I thought that it was really helpful to get feedback from the Planning Commission and the City Council because it gives us a better direction of which ways that we can go. I especially like the color coding. That speaks to my heart. Yeah, I mean, from my takeaway from the last work session that we had, I think that there was an openness to consider changing the current plan that we have in place, and maybe to open up uses to foster more development along Main Street. I thought that there was some openness to doing that, and maybe just putting in looking at maybe just doing some design standards, you know, kind of overlaying it on top. I think this is a great start. It looks to me like there are definitely areas where we should be looking at revising our table of uses. I don't know, did anybody have any strong reactions to the table of use survey? Surprises, concerns?
Well, I think for me, one of the things that was interesting, I think I generally agree with where the majority of everybody voted ended up. I think there was nothing that I looked at and strongly disagreed with. I think it absolutely is necessary for us to go through and make some changes to this table of uses, and I hope that we don't kind of somehow lose sight of this or stop talking about it for whatever reason. I don't think we will, but, you know, for example, one of the things is a post office is not permitted in this zone. We have a post office right across the street over here, so if they wanted to expand for whatever reason by more than 30%, they could not, right? And so that's one of those things that under the current zoning, it just couldn't happen. And so it's kind of like, it doesn't make any sense. So that's a perfect example to me of where somewhere along the way, we maybe lost a little sight of how things are, and we need to go back and readjust, so.
Except the federal government can usually do what they want on the property. So that's probably how that happened.
Oh, come on, Lisa.
Come on.
Lawyers.
My thoughts on this were that it would be really great to start considering uses and discussing them in a way that we feel would possibly change some of our table of uses, and I think would also possibly support the Main Street plan. If we want the Main Street plan to be successful, maybe, then and if we believe in it, then we should try to talk about, okay, well, instead of not being permitted, should we switch something based on the majority of some of these things, change that table of use, and would that assist the current system, the current plan? If it doesn't, then we've changed the uses based on what the Planning Commission and the City Council believe is appropriate for the area, and then we can look back at, okay, now let's see how the area is developing or what's happening there, and are we going farther away from this South Main Street plan or closer to it? And if we're going farther away, then maybe we can address it again. You know what I mean? It feels like an incremental way of helping us sort of test if the plan is even viable. I don't know. I liked this survey. I thought it was very helpful for me.
Yeah, I would be interested to get the City Council's feedback on it, and what their reactions were, because I think that there is definitely room to make some adjustments along that Main Street in a way that I would hope would promote some upgrades and change along that street.
Right.
With regard to the work session summary that Corey put together, I really appreciate this. I'm not sure that I'm so tied into trying to avoid losing out on the benefit of the $30,000 that we put in on the 2007, because it was 10 years ago. And I think that things have changed. So I don't know that that persuades me to feel like we're stuck trying to do something that was put, you know, under that particular survey. So that I don't really view as such a con. But this is another area where I think this is a great tool to use for us sitting down in a work session with the City Council and getting some direction in terms of which way they see Main Street going. Because once we have better direction from the City Council, then we can do a better job of, well, then we can take the reins at that point, right? And start doing our job to try to help support them in their decision.
Would it be appropriate to, as a Planning Commission, suggest some changes to the table of use and then take them up to the City Council? I mean, if we want to move forward, or would it be appropriate to see what they think and then have them come back to us and give us direction and then do it? I mean, what do you think?
I was looking just at the list, there's just some that it seems like there's a lot of consensus on, like
That's
adding
what I mean.
hotel to the table of use, or reception center, or perhaps outdoor recreation and entertainment. It looks like it has a lot of support, you know. So maybe Cassie takes some of those uses that perhaps have 8 or more in the left 2 columns that we would want to see changed, or I don't remember, I'd have to think if that's correctly able, but ones that have large support, and I'll just throw it at city council and see, can we just move forward with these right now?
Yeah.
And just start making some chunks or something.
I think I like that, because I think that goes along with what we talked about at the work session before about putting a sign out that says we're open for business.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things, when I went through and did this survey, one of the things I was thinking about was, what can we do to draw people
Right.
to Main Street? Because, you know, as much as, you know, maybe we've wanted to redesign it and have it look really nice and whatever else, I don't think it's really panned out that way over the last 10 years or so. And so now we just need to do something to draw people to Main Street, and I think a lot of these businesses would do that, you know, so that's what I think would be a great way to advertise that.
Well, what would your thoughts be if we were to put together, I mean, I think that Cassie has gone through and highlighted in yellow all the ones where there's at least
Just the majority.
a
so
majority
like
swing.
6.
I mean, are there any on here that anybody feels strongly about not including? Because it would be, I mean, we could simply take the list of all of the yellow highlights and send it up to the city council and see what they think. I personally would be fine.
I feel like we
opening
should
it
just
up to
make a
all the
motion
yellows.
and send it up to the city council. I mean, is
Like, just as, what do you mean?
that too?
I don't know.
Like there might be
Bold?
public noticing stuff.
Yeah, have we
just
publicly
a-
noticed that, Lisa?
Not
Quick
today. I mean,
comment.
not today,
Yeah.
not today. I'm not talking about today. I'm saying like we should come up with a list. We should make a public hearing, make a motion, send it up to them. I feel like getting their idea, I mean, that's like asking them to micromanage us, I feel like. Isn't it? I don't know. I feel like it
Yeah.
is.
I think it's
So-
a good point, have the public hearing.
I think-
Let other people weigh in.
Oh, absolutely.
Have staff for the next meeting draft up a proposed, you're giving me the finger.
So just
wait,
a
time
quick
out.
comment.
Hold on.
Because when I got this, I was like making this table, very excited, like, can we just amend the table of uses? And the impression that I got from the rest of the staff was like, we need to wait till another work session happens before we move so fast. That was the impression I was getting.
Okay.
But if you guys, I can talk with Corey about it and move forward again, but.
How quickly could we set up another joint work session with the city council?
I'm not sure. I don't know why we couldn't within the next month.
Yeah,
We don't
Want to do it
need-
before they get too involved in the budget session. So, you probably want to talk with the city manager and get that scheduled pretty
Okay.
quickly. Otherwise, they get deep into the budget.
Let's talk to the city manager and
Something
find out how
early May?
quickly, yeah, that we can get something. I mean, even the end of April, if people have availability. Maybe I'm being naive in my assumption, but I think that several of these are not going to be very controversial.
And my
there
other
might be a
question
couple,
is,
but-
if, I'm wondering exactly, I mean, if everyone was asked and surveyed,
Yeah.
why?
That was the impression I got, and if we can make a staff report in the next coming weeks about the table of uses, I think I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I agree with Becky. It feels like we've had the city council's input both at the work session that we had and through the survey.
I mean,
And
they're
so
not citizen planners. They are going to approve it, or they're going to say, nope, go
They
back
get-
and relook at it.
They get the last say.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Okay.
I would say, let's move forward with something. Put it as quickly as we can. It's going to take probably a couple weeks, 3 weeks to get a public hearing.
Do you want everything on the highlighted list, or just the
Well, I think we
8
can
plus or
discuss
whatever you
right
said?
now what we
Okay.
want on the highlighted list, put that forward in a public hearing, and then send it to the city council. We've really gotten every single one of the input, right? I mean, did they all respond?
I think we're missing one if you have 7 commissioners and 5
But I'm
or
saying, did
6.
all the city council members?
There's
'Cause
11.
it looks like there's only 11 respondents.
Should be
and you-
7 and 6, right?
Yeah, so,
So there's 2 that did.
yeah, 2 missing.
My only concern
Do you
would
know
be
who didn't respond, is what
7
I'm
and
saying?
6.
The 5 city council members plus the mayor.
I don't think the mayor, I don't think the mayor took it. I sent it to him, but
So it
Was
looks
there a
like
city
for sure
council
we're missing
member?
one.
You don't have to tell us who, but,
it was all anonymous.
okay, so you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe one of you didn't.
I'm just saying, like, if they've all had their opportunity to
Oh, I
vote on
spent the
every
time
single
on
one.
it. I dedicated the time.
I did it.
I don't have strong feelings either way on this one. My one concern would be, what if the planning commission is on one page and the city council is on another page, right? So if 7 of the votes are one way and it's the planning commission, but all of the no votes are the city council, that is gonna influence. But that being said, I think that Commissioner Wright is correct in that if we send it up and they don't like what it is, then they simply don't adopt it, so.
Well, then we could take Logan's advice and go with everything that's an 8 or higher. 8 is,
That's a higher number.
that's a pretty high number.
Yeah.
And I think there would really only be a small handful that the vast majority had a discrepancy of it should be permitted, but it's UP or something like that.
Well,
If we're
and we
gonna
can
be-
look at the controversial ones. We can say, okay, like, college or university, you can obviously sell, it says stay not permitted. Anything that says, that has like a
Stay.
half in stay not or something not, I don't
Probably
even
not
think we
right
should
then.
even
Yeah.
talk about that one. So even if it has, so, I don't know.
But why not? What if it's us, the planning commission, that is putting it in the stay not permitted and the city council is open to doing it? I don't know that there is, I say this, if at the end of the day, the goal is to try to open it up to uses and hang out our "we're open for sale" sign, then if we're comfortable with them as a planning commission, why not send them up to the city council? And if the city council is not comfortable with them, then they can say no. I mean, if we're gonna take this opportunity to send it up to the city council, why would we not send up all of the uses that we as a planning commission would agree with?
That's fine. I like that because, again, it wouldn't be the first time that we would send something to the city council and they would reject it, you know.
That's what I'm
Respectfully
saying.
disagree.
Respectfully decline to agree with us.
I feel like if we
So-
wait for another work session, we're just saying, hey, can you do our job for us and tell us exactly what you want? And then we'll do it, and then we'll send it to you so you can say, yes, that's exactly what we want.
Yeah, and I appreciate Corey's caution.
I do
You know,
too.
and other staff, I think they're just trying to make sure they do the process right. But I think it needs to be balanced with some of the, I mean, we've had 2 work sessions on this. We've kind of been moving at a pace that I think was a little slower than we anticipated. So I'd be interested in understanding the mechanism we could use to send something up. You know, what exactly the process would be, looking at Lisa and Cassie on that.
So you need to first prepare an ordinance or the proposed text amendments, so staff has to have enough direction to know what you want. And then staff would prepare a staff report on that and present that, and then the noticing is a 10-day notice, but it does require a little bit more. We usually do a 2-week period, you know, so it's not gonna be on your next agenda. It would probably be the one after that would be the earliest. But again, that's, if staff has time to prepare the ordinance, usually I like to make sure it's done, and then the staff report, and then we notice.
So you want some more clear direction on the specific ones and specifically what?
Unless you want staff to just take this chart and do what they recommend and bring that to you as well, you know, we can slot these into recommended, conditional, or permitted. I mean, you're gonna have to figure that out on each one. But-
Right.
I would say notice it for everything that's in yellow. We can talk about it, decide if we agree, and then go with that, right? Because I don't think there's anything that's not in yellow that we'd really be reaching to.
Yeah, I think on the notice, it would be broad notice that we're changing the use table for this zone, so
Yeah.
everything would be up.
We wouldn't even have to name
Yeah.
the uses.
And then you pick and choose, but I do think in order to have a public hearing, you need to give the public information as to what they're coming to speak to, and so you have to at least have a proposal on the table in order to have the public hearing.
Yeah.
So I would direct staff, the next reasonably available opportunity that you have to draft a proposed text amendment to this table of uses ordinance so that we can.
So I have one question
Get it up.
before we do that, though,
Yep.
is if we do that and send it to them and then find that indeed it was the city council that approved and not the planning commission, what's the timetable? What's that gonna do to the timetable if we just take this step versus having a meeting with them?
Well, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we send it up and the city council disagrees, they can essentially line item veto things, right?
Right, so after the planning commission, then we also have to have a public hearing at the city council level, and then
Sure.
they usually have a public hearing, and sometimes they'll table it till the next time, but the city council takes the planning commission's recommendation, but they can ultimately do whatever they want, which is correct. I mean, if we have the chart, they could line item, or they could, you know, they could amend your recommendation,
Exactly.
or they could just say, no, we're gonna deny the
Right.
ordinance altogether.
So in essence,
or
we
they
are
could-
putting it forward quicker than
Yes.
if we're doing this now versus waiting
Yeah, if
for
you're
a
just
work
looking at
session.
time, yes, it would be faster to make your own recommendation than have a work session, and, because then the timeline wouldn't start till after the work session. But it's all, you know, there's pros and cons to either option.
Does anyone have any strong objections or any objections to?
I don't, I just
moving
didn't
forward?
want to keep stalling.
Sure.
That's why I
Right.
want to move, that's why I want
Yeah.
to. The only thing I would say is if possible, not because I voted either way, I just am looking at catering limited and bed and breakfast on both conditional uses. And I feel like the majority is still state CUP, but they're higher on should be permitted as well. Could we include those two?
Well, the proposed ordinance that you would be drafting wouldn't call out specific uses.
I'm just saying with
right?
the yellow.
Well,
Right.
it would, so the
But-
proposed ordinance would, I mean, what the
Specifically
suggestion might
call
be
out.
is just to direct staff to prepare an ordinance that would
Look
amend
at-
the use table based upon the majority votes in this chart. And then when you have your public hearing, you can take the public comment and also your own thoughts and
And
alter
this.
that after the public hearing. You can certainly do that, but that would make it very easy for staff, you know, to just slot these in and get you a draft that you can start discussing. It doesn't mean that the draft is your end result, it's just the beginning of the discussion. And then as you work through it, it might take you a couple meetings to slot them in the appropriate area. And also, of course, if you're changing the use table, you'll want to review the definitions, because
Right.
those are always
The
really
important-
where the detail is of, you think you might know what some of these are, but double check the definition.
Yeah, I appreciate, Cassie, you sending out the link to all of the definitions as we took this, because I did look very closely at the definitions for each one of these as I was going through. Then I would direct staff to do exactly what Lisa has just articulated in terms of drafting a proposed ordinance based on the majority numbers, and then we can
Plus
come back.
bed and breakfast and catering, because those ones are kind of on the line.
They're
but
on the line.
majority was,
I would be fine with that. Anybody having concerns? That one doesn't cause me any heartburn.
We can axe them at the public hearing.
We can, yeah, we can address it later.
We can exit at the public hearing. It's not looking good, Becky. But
Becky,
we
I'm
can
kidding.
put it on there anyway.
I'm just, I was just looking at them, I'm like, well, you know.
We'll go to bed and
Is
breakfast.
there anyone, I don't have any objections to putting them on. Does anybody else feel
I
strongly
mean,
about
5
any
and
of the
6
others?
is not a big discrepancy between the two. I mean, 3
But I
and
just
8,
think-
the next one is different.
Yeah, I just think it's more consistent to start there with the survey, and then let the planning commission debate it and have the record support why you changed it.
there you
Because
go.
people are gonna wonder, well,
Sure.
hey, this one got slotted differently, so.
So yeah, go ahead, that's great.
What's
Yeah,
up with the kennels, people?
I know.
Are we just not a dog
No dog
city?
parks,
Do you
no-
No dog parks, no kennels?
Sounds like,
I'm serious.
I've wondered what's up
I'm
with the
happy about a
golf
dog park. You tell me where you want a dog park and I'll do it, but a kennel, you don't want a kennel.
I'm totally giving y'all a hard time. Sorry, Logan, did you
No,
have
I
a
was just
comment?
gonna say, so Cassie, does that make sense to you then? Like, we would essentially just follow the majority on this, so if one said, what do we do in a situation where we
So
have
not-
like, let's look at, indoor recreation and entertainment, it's 443. So the majority want it to go towards a use that is allowed, but it's kind of split between permitted and conditional. I'd say
Right.
if you're worried about that, just put it in conditional.
Yeah.
If you're if you're worried about it, just leave it in conditional for the draft, and then we can
I
tweak
agree.
it from there.
And I would leave it to the discretion of staff to make, when there's a call on that way, just use your best judgment, and we can debate it once we get the proposed ordinance.
yeah, but I agree with Logan, certainly everything that's not permitted, if it's kind of close like that for something that seems like permitted or CUP, it's easier to err on the side of CUP because that's less of a jump from.
Or you could even err on this side of like, for example, you just said, you know, it's 4 and 4, and then there's 3 more on the other side. So CUP would be the one, but if you look at parking lot, a few rows up, it's 5, 5, and 1, so maybe keep that one. I guess that both makes it CUP, so never mind.
I can't believe no one wanted a correctional
Went out to the
facility.
center.
No correctional facilities? No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
You didn't either.
Do you feel like you have sufficient direction, Cassie?
Yellows
Yellows.
plus
Plus
D&D and catering. Okay.
Catering and bed and breakfast, essentially, yeah.
Got it.
All right,
Majority.
yes. Any other thoughts before we move on?
Just slap Corey's hand for having him stop you do this before.
I try to.
Attached to our work materials was our planning commission goals from last year, and the greater proactive planning was our first goal, and I recognize that there may be some concern at the city council level, but I would like us to consider at the next work session that we have with the city council to really talk to them about this, to see what their thoughts are, because I am not ready to give up on that there are decisions that I think would be appropriate to push down to a staff level that we don't need to take our time with on routine matters, so that we can really focus on our planning responsibilities. So that's not really an action item. That's my own thought for what it's worth. I'd really like to talk to the city council about that at the next joint work session.
So just to back up for one quick second, do you want us to try to, it feels a little bit awkward to plan a work session on Main Street while we're just going forward with the table of uses, but I guess we could.
That's right. No, I don't know that we need to do that right now. Just the next time that we have a joint work session,
So,
I want to put that one on the agenda item.
okay, so just hold off for now.
Yeah,
Okay.
just hold off for now. I just don't want us to forget it,
Okay.
because like I said, I'm not ready to give that one up for dead yet.
Also, real quick on that, the goals. It's not that big of a deal, but.
Are we moving on to the next, are you
Are we
moving?
doing forward
Yeah,
goals?
what are you doing?
It's not really that's
It
not.
is, it's the next one.
Oh, is it a straight up
Next item
agenda
on
item?
the
Yeah.
agenda.
When I printed it, it didn't have a number.
So that's why
three.
I was like, wait, are we
I'm
done
so
with Main
sorry.
Street survey?
Oh, yeah, are we done with Main
No,
Street?
we're moving on to the next one. Was there a?
Okay, so well, let's make
cover
sure
sheet
she
that I
has,
didn't
do you have
print?
everything you need for direction? Okay,
For some reason, I thought it just got squished on the end of the
no.
table of uses. My apologies.
No, it's-
Okay, now moving on to the next agenda item that apparently I don't have a cover sheet for. Sorry.
Yeah,
Planning
there's
commission
not a
goals.
cover sheet, but the previous goals are in the packet, if you
Yes.
have the packet.
All right. I'm a creature of habit. I look for that
Yeah,
divider
sorry.
thing. Sorry. No, that was my fault. Okay, so I've already made my pitch about greater proactive planning. Anyone else have any?
Yeah, it's
Comments,
just a
thoughts?
ticky-tacky thing. Goal number 4A, city trials. I didn't know we were getting into trials, but that's kind of
I
cool.
like that.
That's not our goal.
We're taking over.
Yeah, we're not trying to make that. So I guess we can ask everyone how they feel about the order of this and if they would change anything, remove something, adjust it, I guess.
Mentally, in my mind, my order is the same what Shaylin was expressing, greater proactive planning. However, I'm prepared to simply just do greater proactive planning because the city council might not, they might want that control and safety that they get with a lot of these extra tools. And so mentally, I'm prepared to just try and shoulder our normal workload and then just
Push forward.
try to be more proactive, kind of like what we've done a little tonight, I think. And I think West Centerville would be probably my number one just behind that personally, but.
I think I agree with that it seems like there's synergy down there. I don't know if you guys have tried to go over the freeway lately, but it would be nice if we could maybe get some additional ability for services over there for the people that live there. So I guess for me, I see that as a higher priority than South Main Street. I know we're trying to get it going, but I think that the area that needs attention is the west side.
I know there was a discussion at one time, Shaylin, where you said you'd like to have like 1 or 2 goals. Do you still feel that way, or do you think it's still helpful to have like a list of things or like a year goal, or I don't know?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and maybe just naturally, I look at 4A, B, and 5 as sort of lower on the list for a reason, right? I don't know that it hurts us to have them all together, just so that we remember that they are things that we may want to look at, and and so whether we want to split it out into a list and say primary goals and subsidiary goals, or just leave it in an entire list of 1 through 6, right? I mean, I think either way it's going to work the same. We're going to prioritize what's on top over what's on the bottom. I think that both the South Main Street Corridor Plan and the West Centerville Neighborhood Plan are both really important areas right now. I feel like we have a city council that is looking at and open-minded and willing to do something with the South Main Street plan, and I think that that's an important part of the city. I mean, I don't want to not squander the opportunity, but not squander the opportunity to do something there if we have a city council that is, you know, is looking to get something done, but at the same time, I think that Gina's right. I think we have the West Centerville it's developing, it's, you know, ripe for us to get in, and so maybe we just look at those 2 primary goals and really try to focus on those this year and push them through.
I have a suggestion. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the SMART goal making, where you have to establish all of these key things that make a goal achievable, basically all these different things that they stand for. One main thing I think that is missing from this list is a timeline or some sort of date to move forward on some of these things, because we, since I've been on this planning commission, have said that we would like to start greater proactive planning, which I personally believe is a very important part of what we do. So I 100% agree with that. But if we don't review administrative decisions, we will never get down to these other things, because it will be us putting out fires. So I would propose that we put a timeline on some of these, and even if it's a long timeline, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it being like, in 10 months, we will have discussed this item, or we will have set up a work session of this item, or we will have had a public hearing about this particular, I don't know, you know, we can talk about that, but I think having a really big, great idea is important, but having it measurable, having it assigned to a time, having it, all of these different things is how we're actually going to start moving forward with some of this. So if we don't want to miss our opportunity in the West Centerville neighborhood, let's put a date on it. If we're not going to, you know what I mean? I just think, let's do it. Anyone?
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to ruin.
What do you think, Kai? How do you feel about that idea?
Timeline on is great.
You like that idea? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to dampen anyone's social life, but a canceled meeting is a prime opportunity to do proactive planning, you know? And so perhaps we could direct staff to maybe fill those. I mean, my wife would kill me for saying a canceled meeting. But I mean, it's hard to say we're swamped and don't have time when we have time.
For the record, I talked to Cassie about not missing some opportunities, and I had decided that since we had this survey that was coming up that was front and center, that it didn't make sense for us to meet before we had the survey results. But I hear you, Logan. Because for the record, I said that exact same thing to Cassie. Do we really want to squander this opportunity when we have the ability to talk? But it made sense to me that we should place that on hold until we got all of the results back. I would like to have staff, and I know you guys have sort of had this on your radar, but on the proactive planning and reviewing administrative decisions and procedures, to really take some time and look at what other cities do in terms of delegating administrative decisions to staff, so that we can see what other cities do and weigh whether it's working or not, so that when we go to the city council and say this is what we are proposing, that it's not just us pulling stuff out of the sky, that we can say this city and this city and this city do it, and here are the benefits and here are the drawbacks.
When would be an appropriate timeline to receive that information back? I think, Cassie.
So Corey told me to tell you guys that he hasn't forgotten about it, but he is actually very busy working on 4B, the Foothills Management Plan. So he is trying to get ahead on that one right now and has been occupied with the city council on that. So He knows it's on his list of things to do, and I will tell him to put it up.
Yeah, will you have him just at the next meeting that we have, evaluate it between now and then and come back to us and tell us what he thinks, timeline-wise, that he thinks he can get to that? I don't want to put pressure on him, but that gives him the opportunity to look at his workload and sort of plan and come back to us and tell us what realistically he can do.
Yeah, and we are starting, I don't see any, I could be wrong, but I don't see any meeting cancellations in the next few months. We are starting to pick up again, thankfully. But I think even with meetings with just 1 or 2 short items, there's plenty of room.
Okay.
I don't know how late you guys like staying here, but to put some things on the agendas.
Oh, we've been here late before. Don't worry about that. Hi, Logan.
Yeah, I just want to make sure my wife didn't hear that, but yeah. She hates
It was
us.
somebody else that made that suggestion. It was not Logan. No, I'm just kidding. Well, so for the South Main Street Quarter Plan, it's hard to really put a timeline on that one because I think we are moving forward with that piece where we're looking at the table of uses. And as for the other part, I think that that is one that we really do need to get together with the city council for a work session on before we can
Well, I
move
think
forward with that.
yeah, we're currently working on that one, so that's, so in my mind, I have next time addressing the table of uses for number 2.
Well, maybe in order to get the adequate noticing, we might be 2 meetings away from that.
2
We might be
meetings?
2 meetings out.
Okay, so we've got 2 meetings for South Main Street Quarter Plan for us to address the table of uses, and have a public comment, a public meeting, sorry, what is it called? Public hearing, thank you. A public hearing, and then we will send a plan up to city council, so that's some significant progress. So Pages Lane area, right now, that's on hold. Should we set a date for anything for Pages Lane area, or should we set a date for anything for bike lanes?
What's got it on hold right now, the Pages Lane?
Yeah, I wonder.
The city council had to meet with financial to see if they just basically nixed the parks idea, right?
Yes, they've directed staff to rewrite the general plan amendments for the Pages Lane area. The current draft on the table has eliminated the park area for financial reasons and other practicalities. I believe that is going on the agenda for May 1st. They didn't want to have the public hearing on April 17th. Evidently have 2 accountants on the city council, and that's an important day in the accounting world this year. So the public hearing will be on May 1st on the Pages Lane general plan amendments.
Great. So that one is being taken care of with the city council, so that's being addressed, right? So that's good. Bike lanes, should we set a date for that? Should we discuss when we want to discuss that, or?
I don't bike, so.
Right.
Well, I feel like we did what we wanted to do, which was stripe it now. And then we're waiting until they're going to redo it, right?
Resurface it, right?
Okay, so
What is the timing on that? Do we know, Cassie, when's the next time that UDOT's coming
They
through
told
with
us.
restripe? I know,
I
I just don't
thought it was
remember.
supposed to have been done by now, wasn't
I
it?
thought it was 2018. Doesn't matter. We're going to put on the timeline bike lanes to be done when
I think they're
they
going to start,
resurface.
they'll probably start at about July 1st, just in time for the parade,
So it's wet.
so that it's.
Excellent.
So that one has a timeline.
Obstacles.
That's good.
That has a natural timeline. just
That's a
based
natural
on the
timeline.
UDOT striping.
Okay, and then greater proactive planning, we've directed Corey to tell us when he can receive the information from other people, other cities. So that's next.
I could help out on one of these. Obviously, the subdivision ordinance rewrite has been stalled that I need to resurrect, but on the greater proactive planning, if it would be helpful, while community development is seeking what other cities are doing, I could try to do an analysis of all the different types of procedures and applications that we have, so you know what we're looking at. Like, okay, we've got site, conceptual site plan, final site plan, the 3 subdivision procedures,
Didn't you,
landscaping
already have
exceptions,
that?
and
you did a really good report last year that
I
talked
think it
about
was
administrative.
types, right, it was types for administrative and legislative, but this one will be more specific of, look, these are just the procedures that we have
that we do.
And I don't know how much time it would take, depending on, because I'd probably have to go into who makes the decision, how many involved, public hearing or not. But anyway, kind of get it, because I think another good thing about goals is you need to split them up. You know, you have to start somewhere. And,
Right.
and I think analyzing what procedures we have is the first place to start. What do we have?
Okay.
And then go look at what other people are doing. And I think both of those pieces are relevant information of where to go. But, so I could try to get that to you within a month.
One thing to add to that, Lisa, as well, is maybe consider I wouldn't want to waste time looking at things that by state law we have to do.
Right.
Let's focus on things that we have control over in Centerville. You know,
Yeah.
so rather than spending 30 minutes reviewing everything, spend 5 reviewing the things that we could, 15.
That's a good
that we could
idea.
affect, yeah.
Yeah.
So just those that are discretional.
Well, it sounds to me like we've got some ideas here. I don't want to overload us with so much stuff that we can't get it all done. So it looks like on the greater proactive planning, we have Lisa handling the analysis part on what are existing
Of current procedures.
current procedures. We
That
have Corey
are
and Cassie looking at what other cities have done with regard to those discretionary procedures, so that we can get some ideas to where we can skinny down our administrative decisions and procedures if it makes sense. On the South Main Street corridor plan, we've got a natural deadline coming up on the bike lanes. We've got the May 1 city council public hearing on the Pages Lane area. On the West Centerville neighborhood plan, I mean, that's the last kind of really big one as I see it on our list. I would be curious to know your thoughts in terms of how we tackle this particular elephant. You know, where do we start bite-wise?
I think we start by reviewing the public survey we did the last go-around, and reviewing the results on that to give us a basis on what to look at. I'd like to see an analysis on, for lack of a better term, why that ship sunk, because we got no changes out of it, essentially. I kind of get the sense we went for a lot and ended up getting nothing out of it. And so maybe I'd be interested in a review of the last process.
When was that? That was before
That
my
was
time.
before my time too.
So it was
Even more appropriate.
Yeah,
four?
it was more than 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe just a review of the last process. And
Could have been
Okay.
much longer ago than 4 years ago, because we've both been on for 4 years. You sat on it, I sat on we had like kind of a special interest group. Chair Hershey sat on it, and we also had a West
Stakeholders.
Bountiful
council member.
councilman, some of the owners, property owners down there sat on that. The city councilman had suggested some ideas to look at, and we investigated those, mostly kind of centering around a transit stop, which basically was higher than wanted density in that area. So, but it seems to me like it might be helpful too, even though we have that public survey, has the sentiments changed in the last 4 years? Because, you know,
Yeah, my gut reaction is
West
that,
Bountiful residents might feel differently than they did. People in Centerville didn't seem to care about density over there, but of course West Bountiful would be concerned about that. But it seems to me like I've heard rumblings down there, not that I know everyone down there, but a few people have said it'd be nice if we had some more stuff down here to, like shopping or.
Well, since 5 of us on this planning commission were involved in that process, I think that it makes sense for purposes of determining what we want to do with the West Centerville neighborhood plan to start with that piece in terms of getting staff to give us a summary of what happened the last process, what was done, what the results were done, right? Circulate the results of these surveys so that we, the other 5 of us, can get up to speed on where we were, and then we can decide what makes sense to go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And then I think coupling that with just what's actually happening on
That's
the
what I
west
was
side
gonna
of
say.
Centerville, because
Yeah.
obviously a lot has changed in the past 5 years, just naturally. You know, legacy commons and the apartments, and so I think even when we look at the plan of what was rejected, there have still been changes to the west side of Centerville, and how can we use that to look forward?
That's what I was gonna include there.
What do you think timeline-wise, Cassie, on that particular item?
Maybe talk
It
with
depends
Corey.
what your
Yeah.
priorities are.
Well, I think that the top priority for me, if anyone else disagrees, let me know, would be to move forward with the table of uses.
Yeah.
So that would be number one priority, and then let's touch bases, put it on your list of things to do, and we can touch bases with you at our next planning commission meeting and see
What if we put it in June?
where things are.
Yeah. I say just bump it out 3 or 4 months.
That's what I'm
and
saying,
then
just, like,
maybe
put it
some
on
of these
the
other
list.
things are a little further along.
Just
and
3
make
months
it
down the
better.
road, doesn't have to
Yeah.
be.
Well, and we could even just set out 15 minutes in one of our next meeting and have Corey,
Right.
and have a timer, and have Corey give us a rundown of that.
Cassie, I would love to see on our next agenda items, right, a list of the sort of outstanding to-do lists that we could use kind of as a check-off each planning commission meeting, so that every meeting we have our list of things so that we can stay on top of it and accountable for what it is that we're doing.
Sounds
Even
good.
if we don't get to every single one of them every meeting, right, at least we're seeing them every agenda so that we know that they're still outstanding and are working towards them.
Okay.
So what if I say June? How do you guys feel about June?
Feels great.
That feels good.
Let's say by June,
You are very
I am
dedicated
determined
to
to
putting
this,
time
guys.
on this.
Smart.
okay, so I would propose that we direct staff that by June, the beginning of June, we will have heard what Shaylin said.
Sure.
Just the summary
And
of.
if-
The summary,
Yeah.
and then what currently is happening over there.
Okay.
And whenever it fits best into what is happening with other things,
Sure.
put it in.
And if staff has just like an overload, I mean, we don't want to kill you guys. You
No.
guys are great and you do so much. So if what we're asking is just simply not workable on your end, please let us know and work with us because we'll work with you. We don't want to, I don't want to
Absolutely.
set an unreasonable deadline on you. But let's go ahead and pencil in our first meeting in June.
At least a summary, yeah.
Okay.
And
And-
this is like a 15-minute
Yeah,
summary
it
from
doesn't have to
Corey.
be.
Yes.
Just.
I think that's doable.
Okay.
Corey, he remembers, he could probably do it without much preparation too.
He'll give you a 30-minute summary without
15
preparation.
minutes. 15.
Tell him 15. Because I do think it would be really helpful. I agree with you guys that would be really helpful for you guys to hear. But I will say that what was investigated was a transit hub,
Yeah.
which is not, that's not really what was wanted in the end. So I would say like a faster summary would be, just because I don't think it's going to be as applicable
Right.
going forward.
I also wouldn't want to take any momentum away from any progress we make on Main Street in the next few months. So if we're doing really well, making progress and getting things to the city council with that,
Yeah. That's a good point.
we'll see.
We'll put them as aspirational goals, but we're flexible. We're
Okay.
not rigid. So we'll,
We put a
We'll
goal
work
as,
with
you could put a goal as June, and you could come back before June and say, we need to amend that date, and that is totally fine. But as long as we have that date, then we can keep moving towards it, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
Amen.
do we feel good on goals? Are we
Yes.
ready to move on to the
No,
next
I'm not
agenda?
good.
Move on.
Wait,
Nope, one more.
yes. Trials.
I didn't say wait. I said
Trails.
move on.
No.
Oh, what, trials?
I want to talk about that.
Oh, don't move on.
Can we at least put a summer deadline on meeting with the Trails Committee, or looking at that?
Can we meet with them independently, with the city council? There's no reason why we couldn't meet with the Trails Committee, right?
A work session between the Trails Committee and the Planning Commission?
So perhaps sometime in July.
There you go. Sometime in the summer, you
Yeah,
could
we
even
could
just say.
meet 30 minutes before or something in one of our regular meetings,
We'd need more than 30 minutes.
35.
Yeah.
35 minutes before.
Let's let's look at setting, I'm fine with that. I think that
Just
that's a great
sometime in the
idea.
summer.
Let's touch bases, make sure that we're on the same page. Let's look at meeting, will you talk to the Trails Committee and see what their availability is at our 2 meetings
I
in
think
July?
their summer meetings are hikes, so it could be an
Hikes?
active meeting.
I want to do it.
Score.
They could show us the existing trails.
So let's
I like that idea.
let's look at putting together a joint work
Okay.
session with the Trails Committee
Summer.
in July. I feel like we are loading up our plates, folks. We are taking Logan's,
We can
let's be
always push it
proactive
back,
and
yeah, that's
You can always push it back.
We can always push it back, and we can always
Amping it up.
just have that joint work session and then come up with a plan then that doesn't take away from other things that are maybe, have better
Right.
momentum.
Sure.
And then you said Corey's already working on the Foothills plan, so
He's done a really amazing progress on that so far. So I'm sure he'll be updating you
just
eventually.
at,
Oh, that's good.
at some point, when it fits in the next few months, have him update us on the Foothills plan. There, we got it all done.
Is that a higher priority? I mean, that's something he's doing for the city council. Does that need to be a higher priority for the planning commission? Not that we
It's a high
necessarily.
priority.
Well, I think if he's already doing it for the city council, then let's.
We're
Yeah,
okay,
the city
we can leave
That's
it where
my
it's at.
thought.
Okay.
For the city council, because there was that whole mountain bike trail discussion,
Yeah.
but which brings up the whole issue of the Foothills kind of management plan. And so it just kind of got roped into that and so pushed forward a little bit by circumstance because of the mountain bike trails. So we're just kind of going with it.
Which is
Going
sort of related
forward.
to the trails and pathways too, so
Yeah.
that's why they're for A and B.
If he's already taken the bull by the horns on that particular item with the city council, I'm willing to let him just run with that on that side, and we can focus on the other,
I agree.
the other items that
Yep.
are not already on the radar of the city council, or the focus of them, I guess. Okay, anyone else have any really strong feelings about goals that they would like to talk about?
I only have strong feelings, Jalen.
Any other strong feelings? Okay. No, really, thank you. This is a really helpful discussion. I'm really glad to see us looking at being proactive. I think that there's a lot of good work that we can do, and we have a lot of great people with good ideas. So let's make it happen, folks. Moving on to the next agenda item, we're looking at reviewing the March 14th minutes. So.
Are we doing
Well,
the
we
community
still have 5 and
development?
6.
What is up with this? Okay, man, I need the dividers because without it, I just walk through it, Cassie, in order. I should pull it out this way. All right, you want to give us a community development director's report?
Yes, the next meeting, the 25th, is going to be fun. The Dave Bell property rezone is coming again. Now that our RM density is capped at 6 units an acre. They're going for that. And then Fred Hill has yet another hillside text amendment for us, because we keep finding things in the hillside that don't work for a lot of reasons. So this one is regarding impervious surfaces. So you have those to look forward to. And I think, is Pages Lane coming up again this next city council meeting? I'm not actually sure where that's at totally.
Yes, it's on the next,
Okay.
on the May 1st meeting.
As a public hearing.
Yeah, so it won't be completed till then at least.
Yeah.
Any information regarding the city council report?
That's
No,
it.
that was it, just
Yeah,
the
just the
upcoming.
Pages Lane. I don't think anything has been passed there recently.
No, since you
Yeah.
had a couple canceled meetings, there wasn't any land use items coming up.
Yeah.
Okay, if my very careful review of the cover agenda items are correct and not relying on the cover sheets in between things, next up on the agenda is, for real this time, review of the March 14th minutes. So let's go ahead and do these page by page. Now, wait a second, are they the March 4th or the March 13th minutes?
That's an adjustment that needs to be made. It's March 14th.
Okay, so on the first page, we'll amend that to say March 14th rather than the 13th.
And all headers.
And all headers. Yep, they're all gonna need to be fixed. Okay, apart from that one change, let's go through page by page. Any other comments on page 1? Page 2? Okay, this is just a really ticky-tack thing, but can we push the reasons for action at the bottom down onto the next page so that it's not just kind of hanging there as a floating header?
It's called a widow.
A widow, yeah, or an orphan. Any other revisions on page 2? Page 3? Page 4?
Well done, yeah, I think she made the March 13th mistake on purpose, so we could realize that she's mortal.
You've done an excellent, excellent job on these minutes. Chair will entertain a motion.
I move we approve, right, the minutes of the March 14th Planning Commission meeting as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And unless anyone has any real desires to talk about anything else, I move that we adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All
So
right.
that brought up a good question. Which is the widow and which is the orphan?
The
So
widow,
is the widow
the
the
widow on
last
top?
line and
widow
then
is
the
a
orphan?
line, and an orphan is a word.
Is that true?
Yes,
Oh, just one word?
yes.
But it would still be a widow.
It would still be a widow.
Yes, it's a widowed orphan.
That's a very
It's a widowed
lawyer-
orphan.
a lawyer thing to do.
That is a lawyer thing to say.
I just checked the widows and orphans box, right? It's all combined. Oh, yeah, I didn't think about it. Widows and orphans.
Huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Sorry, everyone, thanks for being patient with me.
I'm sorry I kept messing up the agenda. I'm usually everyone has a header thing. I am so like Dave was so great.
Yeah, so it's every second and fourth Wednesday.
So we just came back from Amsterdam.
Dates in front of me sometimes.
And I was like, this is the coolest thing. They're like